All right, Facebook Live, we have a show for you. Oh my gosh, we got Lida, we got Joel, we got Bobby, and in the lobby, which is kind of the green room area, we got Robert, who you cannot see right now. And we may have another guest joining us. We have several guests in this slot. Everybody just give you a minute, just say hi.
Hi.
Hi there. And we are all over the world, so that is always a fun piece. Lida was the first to show up, so we are going to start with her. So we're going to say not goodbye, but we're not going to do that at all. We're going to escort Joel over to the green room. And I just did that. And Bobby, I'm gonna escort you over to the green room as well. And now we got Bobby, Joel, and Robert over in the green room. And we got Lida Citroen. Did I say that correctly?
You did.
Citroen. All right, with the right emphases and whatnot. And let's see here. Let's do look in here. Already practiced your bio, which is great. We got the website. We got the everything else there. We got a little bit of a bouncing ball of Excel, the little thing that did that for a second, which I don't like. I'm going to check my memory, which isn't too bad either. Checking. Yeah, I'm looking at some of the stuff. Hey, Facebook Live, this is what happens. Facebook, just making sure. Oh, well, I have Facebook open, so I'm going to shut Facebook down in addition to this.
I have been told people can see us, so.
Yeah, no, they can see us for sure. Yeah. Now, just so that everybody knows, I have been having, before we actually get into the podcast interview, and you can see it right now. I can see it right now. It's the visual is slowing down. There's a little bit of a lag, and hopefully the audio stays intact. And if we need to, we're going to zip over to Zoom if we absolutely have to. This platform is wonderful as long as it works perfectly. And when it doesn't work perfectly, it's really obnoxious because it looks so wonderful, and then the support and the tech is not the best. It's actually almost non-existent. And as the host of this podcast and show, I put my reputation sometimes foolishly on the line by having all my guests come to this platform because it looks so much better than doing a live Zoom or something like that. It looks a whole lot better. So I keep my fingers crossed, but if we need to, we're going to pivot. And so my advance apologies. Normally I would not say this, but it's been, I've done 2 interviews already. I did 2 interviews in the last 90-minute slot, and that'll give you an idea. This 90-minute slot, I think we have 5 or maybe 4 out of the 5 have so far showed up. So that gives you a little bit of an idea what kind of a day that it is. But we are ready to pivot over to Lida. I'm ready to rock. How about you?
I'm ready. Let's go.
You know what? We got to do one last thing, Lida. If you can give me a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
We're ready to rock. And we're going to jump right into it in 3, 2. We are live with Lida Citroen. Lida, are you ready to rock?
I've always been ready. Yes, Nathan, I'm ready.
I love it. I love it. And I'm going to say that again because it's just one of those days. Lida, are you ready to talk?
I am ready to talk. I've been ready to do that always as well. So
Lida Citroen is an international reputation management and brand specialist who helps individuals develop, enhance, and or repair their personal brand to stand out in increasingly competitive global markets. Lida Citroen, welcome to the talk.
Thank you, Nathan. I'm excited to be here.
Your talk is called The Power of Gratitude and Generosity, Serving Those Who Have Served. I love this talk, and I'm a little bit biased because I'm right outside of Philadelphia broadcasting this. You had a major brand pivot of your own brand, and you go into your career and some of the twists and the turns of it, and you came out of that basically, just to summarize your talk, because we're going to go beyond your talk, you wanted to come to the point where you could serve other people, literally, who have served, are veterans, and helping them do probably the most difficult mission of all, because they're not following orders when they step into civilian life and they transition. Now they have to be their own boss, and they have to completely go counter to their training. They have to be bold. They have to talk about themselves instead of the group, and so many other lessons that really apply to all of us, because many of us have a hard time promoting ourselves or talking about ourselves, and we all need to have that distinction of being able to talk and shine the light on ourselves, especially in a job interview situation. That's a little bit of the thunder. Lida, we're going to go beyond the talk. Take us there right now.
Well, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head, and that is, as the world becomes noisier and as it becomes busier, we have to take the burden, if you will, to know what our value proposition is, be able to articulate that value to an audience that cares, and not everybody cares. So part of branding and reputation management is figuring out who is your target audience, what do they care about, and what about you lines up with that. And yes, as you mentioned, people coming out of the military, that's not their training. Their training is not to differentiate and, stand in their own voice in the way that civilians do. So it was a great opportunity to give a TED Talk on a topic that I'm passionate about, which is serving those who serve.
And thank you for starting right here in Philadelphia. That was part of the talk. That was the part that really got my antenna up, and just powerful stuff. So my question to you, I mean, this is really, you do brand management and branding and all of this for, outside of that niche. This is specifically about how you have been giving back of your valuable, limited time, because these people have served our country. They've put everything on the line for us. So my question to you is, you talk about why this is so difficult for military people to, in a new world with different values and where you have to tout yourself and to avoid being looked over. How do you describe that? Here's a question that it's taken me 2 hours to get to. How do you frame these missions for these veterans who are transitioning back to civilian life? How do you frame that so that they're able to tackle that as a mission instead of some kind of a taboo as that would be in their native military situation?
Culture. Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head, and that is, you do have to frame it, right? This is the most trainable workforce of individuals we have in this country, and our nation has spent billions of dollars training them. So to think they can't be trained to do something different would be a mistake. So what I do is I frame it up that, yes, you are moving from one culture, one community, one set of protocols and rules into something very different. And as a civilian who has no military connection personally, I'm able to reflect what the other side of the table is thinking about. In the last few years, I've been doing a lot of work with employers who are trying to hire from this talent pool, who are frustrated with, resumes that don't make sense and their inability to communicate their value. So I can reflect that too. And there's not a lot of resistance. I mean, sure, they don't love the concept of self-promotion. They don't love the concept, and I say they generally for veterans, they don't love the concept of networking. They roll their eyes when I talk about networking. But they're realists, and they understand, excuse me, that as a civilian, I've been spending my whole career learning these skills, and they need to learn these skills in order to adapt and thrive in this environment. And I find them very receptive and very quick to grasp the concepts.
I loved how you really got into the meat of what they face. I mean, these are people that, I mean, we're not, whether you're a Navy SEAL or any military person, their job is to follow orders and to complete the mission. And what a powerful skill set that is. And at the same time, those of us that, I mean, anyone who has a personal brand, whether you're an entrepreneur in a corporation or entrepreneur outside on your own, you've got to add that skill set of also creating your own mission and then following through. And I don't know about you or anyone else out there, but it can be really, really challenging to do both of those things and not just simply follow orders and complete someone else's mission, but to also creatively create something according to your values or the needs or whatever, and then follow through. I don't know if you talk about that or touch on that with people, but that is something that is, I think, common challenge to all of us. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, a couple things. First of all, that's why I named the book that I wrote for transitioning military service members. I called it Your Next Mission, because I want them to think about this as part of their career, right? I would also challenge you that they don't all follow orders, right? And not to say that they're rogue, but there are those who give the orders and those whose job it is to execute on those orders. So, and we find that sometimes is very fluid. Now, you don't want a lot of entrepreneurial thinking on the battlefield. It's risky. So there's definitely strategy, but there's a lot of improvisation and a lot of creativity. And we sometimes forget that when we think about our nation's veterans, that they've learned to adapt and overcome and be resilient and be creative in how they solve these problems. So that's very transferable. The other thing you mentioned is everybody has a personal brand. So whether you're an entrepreneur, introvert, extrovert, whether you're on Facebook or not, every person has a personal brand if you think about it like a reputation. The power of what I try to talk about is that you can take control of that, you can manage it and leverage it for your advantage in an authentic way, as opposed to sort of building a brand by default, whether you're a veteran or a civilian.
Well, we've been enjoying this conversation with Lida Citroen. Her talk is called The Power of Gratitude and Generosity, Serving Those Who Have Served. And we're going to hear more from Lida in just a moment when we return with the Blitz Round.
Great.
And we're back with Lida Citroen. It is time for the Blitz Round. I'm about to ask Lida a series of either or questions related to the preparation and the performance of her recent talk. Lida, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. First question. It's almost like a mission kind of thing right here. We're talking military either or question. Were you invited to speak or did you apply?
I applied.
Just like it seems the rest of us. So that's a mission in itself to get accepted, my friends. Are you a memorizer, an improviser, or a blender?
Not a memorizer. Been doing this way too long. It's probably memorized, but there's so much improvisation.
What's a tip, tool, or technique that helped you prepare?
To know that I was going out on the TED stage to represent a community that was counting on me to deliver an important message. I felt that responsibility and that burden, but also the joy that they were all with me. And that's actually the part at the end of the talk where I got a little choked up, is realizing that they were all standing on that stage with me.
Oh, that's a powerful why, because you're representing, in a sense, you're representing the people behind the mission, your mission.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So were you an opener, were you a closer, or were you in between?
I was in between, and I followed a guy who literally fell apart on stage. So was standing back. They took me out of the green room, standing backstage. They had no idea when he was going to finish. They said, just hang out here. When he walks off, it's your turn. Go have a TED Talk. So it was different.
Well, hey, congratulations. You were on mission. So, this is something we talk about in my Get Accepted course. There are all kinds of little dynamics. We don't have time to talk too much about that. But that's almost like a military mission. If somebody before you has fallen apart, that organizer and every person in those seats and the team and all the other speakers, Lida has to pull it together and bring us out. So what did you do in that moment to, or did you discount it and just do what you were going to do anyway and not even think about it?
I think you discount it and you get out there, you stand on the red dot and you give 100% for 12 minutes and you hope you did a good job. And they had a lot of veterans in the audience because they all started nodding their head as I was talking. And so that gave me a lot of reassurance, but just, it's a chance of a lifetime. So you take advantage.
Oh my gosh. So here's my next question. And you can't repeat what you just said. So besides the person in front of you, you know, having a difficult time on stage, what else was the most or the second most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or right before your talk? I guess everything else is a distant second.
You know, that was a doozy. I had a couple people really change up their talks, and which, you know, makes you start second guessing. Should I change up mine? We do a dress rehearsal the day before, and I just decided, you know, go with what you know. And I had a lot of support, and I felt like I was just gonna. But I saw people changing it up and trying to do things differently in the moment. That threw me off a little bit for a second.
Well, good for you for not letting it throw you off, you know, for more than a second. And Talk Universe, part of the preparation for this, and part of the reason that so many people are hiring coaches, and rightfully so, is so that they can really be prepared. And when they're, I don't know, was this a small group? Were there like 8 other speakers, or were there 20 other What was the size of this event, Lida?
I think they had 14.
Okay.
A lot of death talk. It was interesting. People that had lost a child, people that were talking about. And so, yeah, that was probably the other thing that kind of threw us off, is it got really heavy really fast. And then the guy before me had his meltdown, and it was odd. But you know what? I didn't care about any of that. I cared about making sure my 12 minutes were what I needed to be able to deliver this message, because I knew that the men and women in uniform who'd, you know, helped me over the years understand the differences between the military and civilian culture. They were watching to see what I was going to do. And the level of support I got afterwards, I mean, they still share that TED Talk, and it goes viral every time they do.
Well, and it's a great talk. Well, so I had no idea watching your talk, and we're about to show you where you can go to watch that talk. Talk Universe, stick with us in just a few moments. But I mean, you have no idea the drama that surrounded.
Oh, there was drama.
The death talks and the bereavement. I mean, I've interviewed a few people that have given those kinds of talks on this show, and I've interviewed MCs on Be the Talk, because the job of a TED Talk MC is even more difficult than a normal MC, and their job is to keep the room together, keep the room connected, and keep a little bit of forward moving, lighter energy in the room. That's really their job, in my opinion. I can talk about this because I actually got the bat phone rang, TMI, but the bat phone rang. I had 2 days to actually pull it together to MC a TEDx event that I spoke at a year before. So this is a little bit close to home right now. You got to have that forward moving energy. But anyway, hey, Talk Universe, we are about to tell you where you can go to check out Lida's talk. And we've been enjoying this talk with Lida Citroen. Her talk is called The Power of Gratitude and Generosity, Serving Those Who Have Served. And she certainly did serve those who have served in the room, as well as outside the room in the YouTube audience, because she stuck with the mission and she landed that talk in the middle of it. Sounds like all kinds of crazy drama going on in that event. And that's part of the reason that we have this resource of Be the Talk. We talk about these things that nobody else would ever. I mean, can you imagine how taboo and almost disrespectful seeming it's that? We're not disrespecting. This is how it is. But we want to talk about these issues because we want you to give your talk to change the world. Now, anyhow, you can go to find out more about Lida. You can go to our website and watch her talk. We're going to have a link to it right on bethetalk.com, our show notes, as well as, very important, you want to go to Lida360.com, LIDA, the number 360, Lida 360.com, and you're going to be able to, she has a store there and some resources, including the book that she mentioned. You want to check it out, Talk Universe. And we're going to be back in just a moment with Lida Citroen for the final word of advice for you, Talk Universe. And we're back with Lida Citroen. It is time for the 10-second final word of advice.
My word of advice for anybody, no matter where you are, is be yourself. And that is easier said than done, but figure it out. It's worth spending the time to figure out who you are, because the rest of the world is moving too fast to spend the time to figure out what makes you special.
Lida Citroen, thank you so much for coming on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thank you, Nathan. It's been a pleasure.
All right, that's a wrap. Now, we are still broadcasting, but the podcast portion has been recorded successfully. So that is a wrap. Now, I forgot to mention this because we have so many amazing guests here on the talk today. So if you are in Lida's fan club, or if you are in Joel's fan club, if you are in Robert's fan club or Bobby's fan club, I want you to wiggle your finger like the creepy kid from The Shining over the share button, because let's say this is the only way that people will get to spread their message, that Lida gets to share your message, is if you share Lida's message. So if you're military, if you have someone that you love in your family that's in the armed forces, or they're a veteran, or they, or they're in the National Guard, or they're doing anything, they're in the Coast Guard, they're, anyone that is helping, you want to share this broadcast right now. If this is no longer a live broadcast, you want to share that broadcast, even when it's not live right now. Now, I want to thank my friend Steven from Vietnam, all the way on the other side of the world. He popped in earlier. We're not doing the recording right now, so just want to say hi, Steven, buddy. It is good to see you on Be the Talk. And Lida, we're going to wrap up right now, and then I think we have Joel on deck here. So we're going to actually bring Joel up here. And,
do I pull myself out?
No. I'd love to hear any quick advice for me, how I can be doing a better job doing what I'm doing, especially given that the crazy tech morning that I had that fortunately you didn't get to see. So anything I can be doing?
No, you're doing great.
I think it works pretty fine.
Awesome. Well, hey.
Both at the same time. Yeah.
Good stuff. All right. Well, Lida, if you can stick around, that is wonderful.
I want to hear what Joel has to say.
Steven's commenting away. Thanks and nice. All right. Good deal. Good. Thanks for the vote of confidence. We can all use some confidence, whether we're military or civilian. But I feel like I'm military against technology today. And this time I'm winning, which is cool. Lida, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you in the alumni group, which is only for Be the Talk alumni. And that's a great way to continue the conversation. Now, Joel, how are you, my friend?
I'm just fine.
Awesome.
How about you?
I'm just peachy. Things are,
even though you had some technical issues, you're fine. That's good.
Yeah, we sure did. So it is good. I am looking for your bio. Anything that I can say? It looks like we had some kind of a tech. I don't see anything in the bio. So can you give me a very
brief? I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm running a number of companies. I think I started 19 companies so far. So,
wow. Okay.
Pretty seasoned. And along with that, it comes that you stand on the stage once in a while and give a talk or a speech. And so I've done that a few times.
All right, great. And your website is technocreatives.com.
Yes, it's technocreatives.com, and that's my company. I use the company for both helping heavy industry, but I also working with I use this as my toolbox to start other companies and other ideas.
All right. Well, great. And it's Rozada or Rozada or something else?
Rozada.
Rozada. Okay. Very good. Yeah. All right. And you are joining us from Sweden today, correct?
Yes. So it's the other side of the pond from you guys.
Yeah, it sure is. You're in Gothenburg. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's on the West Coast. So
yeah. No, I have a friend in Gothenburg. So
oh, really?
Yeah, it's like the second largest city in Sweden or something like that,
if
right?
You would call it large, it's the second largest. That's true.
If you go in March, okay. Well, great. Any questions for me before we jump on live here?
No, just go with it.
All right. Great. Well, Scott gives us a thumbs up, so that's always good to see. All right. Well, we are live. Actually, let's do this. Give me a 5 count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All right, we're good. And we are live in 3, 2. We are live with Joel Rozada. Joel, are you ready to talk?
Yes, I am.
Joel Rozada is a 19-time entrepreneur and speaker, and he joins us today from Gothenburg, Sweden. So, Joel Rozada, welcome to the talk.
Thank you very much.
Your talk is called Immoral Thinking. And I love your talk because you really go into, frankly, for me, like lean startup theory. You talk about how to grow exponentially and then how we have to fix the problems caused by our exponential growth. And it's all about sustainability. It's all about design and systems design. I love that world. I've taught systems design myself. And I love this solution that you have to all of a sudden, instead of trying to fix everything for good, what you call immoral thinking, which is to just go into another gear, decide what a bad thing to do would be, because you are trying to beat the competition. You're trying to beat the status quo. And I think it's a little bit refreshing, especially if we can take it in the spirit with which I think you're offering it. So we'll find out if that's the case. Talk about immoral thinking.
So basically, I work as an entrepreneur and I work as a designer, and I try to find solutions to all of these problems around the world. And they could be of different kinds. But mainly, I face people that are trying to do good to the world. They're trying to fix a big problem. And quite often, they're quite good at doing that. But they're thinking too small. And you're not allowing yourself to think in scale, and you're not allowing yourself to really use the tools out there. And instead of using like different Post-its or 6 thinking hats or methods like that, what I personally like to think is instead exactly what I talk about, the immoral thinking. Ask yourself, what's the most immoral thing you could do with this one? And I have a little
I love it. We're not talking about bodily harm or anything like that. We're just kind of it's a creative device, correct?
It's a creative device. It's a little bit like a chess game. You're just trying to win.
Yeah.
So in chess, you're trying to find that move that will put the other player in a very bad position. And if you're building solar panels, of course you want to like put the coal industry in a bad position. I think that's quite easy right now, though. But you want to think in that way instead of just thinking of the good you can do.
Mm-hmm. So we're switching gears in our head. We're playing chess with the competition. I think that's an excellent way to frame this, just so that I want to stave off any hate mail or comments or things like that. We're talking about the chess game of business, and we're also talking about maybe there's forward-looking industries that are creating a more sustainable world versus the status quo industries like the fossil fuels. Even though they're providing jobs,
it's not about that either. Yeah. It's a design technique. It's just a way of being creative. Instead of trying to take this other responsibility, it's trying to be like, if 6 thinking hats, or if there's lots of different Post-its driven creative methods. I think that quite often it's easier to see a solution. And when you look at the solution, when you start thinking of the scale is very often connected to this. Okay, you need to crush the competition. You don't need to have if you're building a solar panel, you don't need to sell one. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make the world a better place. You need to sell millions to make it better. And it's just a design technique, actually.
Yeah, well, I mean, what a great way. I mean, it's kind of fun, and you can really get a sense in your talk of kind of it's almost like a mischievous, creative kind of muse that you can get by flipping it on its head. And I appreciate that, because it's like sometimes, you're in business, or maybe in my case, I'm doing this podcast, and it's like it takes a lot of energy to do what you're doing. I have a mentor that says, don't do what you're going to do very lightly. Think long and hard about your dream, because it's got to be worthy of you, because you're going to trade your life for whatever you're pursuing. So, I mean, it takes so much ongoing effort. Why not switch gears and think as if you were like evil and immoral, just to get new ideas and then go back into the chess game.
To be moral and not really.
So how did you, I mean, is this you think this is kind of a unique idea worth spreading for you, or is this something that you heard somewhere else, or what is there a story behind how you realized this?
I got asked to talk about creativity and technology and all of that, and I was asked to talk about that at TED, and I started thinking of, is there something in common that I do over and over again? And since I run a design agency and a design business and technology, I know quite a lot about all these methods, and I come across these methods in so many places. So I started thinking, and I haven't done that before, how do we really do when we're designing stuff? How do we think, and what are we doing? And I tried to talk about that. And it might become a book in the future, but right now it's mostly a speech.
Well, you know, the books have a funny way, or presentations, TED Talks have a funny way of turning into, white papers and turning into ebooks.
Like a lot of work.
Yeah, so you might already be on your way. Hey, what's your next talk going to be about, you think?
Oh, that was a hard one. I think, or I already know. Actually,
see, this is immoral thinking. I'm like, I don't think I should put Joel on the spot.
Most of the talks I do is around the companies I run. So most of the talks I do is around the companies and around the business ideas, around the technology we're building, and so.
Mm-hmm. Well, hey, we've been enjoying this talk with Joel Rozada. His talk is called Immoral Thinking, and we're talking about the chessboard game of life and business and sustainability. You're going to love this talk, and we're going to tell you where you can see it in just a moment when we return for the Blitz Round. And we're back. It is time for the Blitz Round with Joel Rozada. I'm about to ask Joel a series of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of his recent talk. Joel, are you ready?
Oh, yes.
Question number 1. Were you invited to speak, or did you apply?
I was invited to speak.
Well, congratulations. It's nice to be invited.
It was with a very short notice, though. I only had a few weeks. Oh, okay. Yes. And I had a very good invitation, actually. I had an email. It read that we were supposed to have a monk talking about death, but we think that you could talk about technology instead.
See, then we'll get with more of this death.
You say, oh, yes, that sounds like a brilliant idea. I want to do that.
My last guest, which is on this same broadcast, we talked about death and talks and all of that. So that might have been a very wise choice to bypass the monk and to bring Joel and his immoral thinking to the stage.
I don't think he bypassed him. He just couldn't show up. So that's why. So I have a very short time to prepare the speech. And normally I think for a TED show, you have a lot more time. And so,
well, how did you prepare with short notice? Did you memorize, or did you blend, or did you improvise, or did you do something else?
I blend. I like to have, as a technique, I like to use lots of images, because if you have an image on a speech, you cannot say it in the wrong order. If you have 3 bullets and you say 2 of them and you forget the third one, it makes it so much harder to actually deliver something that sounds spontaneous and is interesting to look at and listen to. So instead, I try to have all these images, and then I memorize the different parts of the image. So I know that the bicycles near the trees. Because of that, I'm going to talk about the bicycles. I do this in the speech, or if you listen to it, you're going to see it. And then it's very easy to come up with all of these stories and to tell these stories once again.
So, you're thinking in pictures, but you're really talking about a metaphor. You're talking about a bicycle, and then it helps guide your memory through the speech.
And it's not only thinking images. I think more that I try to always use only images and very little text on slides, because text is blocking your brain, I think. It gets into, you try to say exactly what's in there and try to say it in exactly that order. But if you instead have an image, which is representing what you talk about, you can alter that story in so many ways. And you can even pick up something that the previous speaker had been talking about. And then you get an engagement with the audience, because you're more interactive. It's not just saying something that you rehearsed before.
Talk Universe, I hope that you heard what Joel just said, because if you can go with imagery and metaphor and keep the words out of your slides, you're going to get that kind of heart level engagement that you really, really, really want. Joel, were you an opener, or were you a closer, or were you in between?
I were right in the middle.
Right in the middle. What's your advice to other people right in the middle?
It's not that often you can actually select where you want to be. I think you just end up somewhere. And I think that you should listen into the other speeches and try to have a reference to the other ones. If you can pick up that sense of interaction with the audience, you get much more engagement, and people really understand that you're there, and they will listen a lot more to what you say.
Joel, this is the cut for time question. What was the most painful part of your talk that you had to cut out because they didn't give you enough time?
Oh, that was a hard one.
It's painful.
I don't think I experienced exactly that problem. So because I designed it around the time, it was very free. I had to stick to my time, and I think that 12 minutes is a quite long time, especially if you try to have a high engagement piece. It's quite a lot of time to fill.
You know, Talk Universe, I really agree with Joel on this one. If you can do a shorter talk, they might give you all 18 minutes. If you can go for 9 or 10 or 12 minutes like Joel did, that's going to really make for a much more engaging talk. When Ted started, I think 20 years ago, we had a whole lot more of an attention span. And I think that the shorter the talk that you can get, I love what Joel just said. Totally agree with that. Joel, last question for you. What was the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened before or during your talk?
I think it was during my talk was quite easy. It was just going as I expected. But I think that before the talk, we had a power outage, and it mainly affected the music, and there was some event in the middle of the speeches. So all the schedule were a little bit shifted and so.
Oh wow! So power outage and a little bit of that, but not during your talk though.
Not during the talk. Yeah, I think you would have noticed that in the video.
I think we would. Well, or you would have had to restart, so that would have made it part of your story. I'm sure at that thing. You got to be ready for anything, Talk Universe. Now we've been enjoying this lightning this blitz round with Joel Rozada. His talk is called Immoral Thinking. And if you want to check out that talk, it's a great talk. You go to our show notes page at bethetalk.com, or you can just type in TEDx Immoral Thinking into YouTube if you want to do all that typing. The other thing that you'll see on our page is a link to Joel's website. That is technocreatives.com. technocreatives.com. Great domain name. And we're going to be back in just a moment with Joel for the final word of advice for you, Talk Universe. And we're back with Joel Rozada. We're ready for the final word of advice for Talk Universe.
I think this is a very common advice, but I really like when people, and I try to myself, always talk in stories. Try to tell something, try to tell a story. It's so much easier to get this engagement. And if you tell people how it looks around your table or how the world looks when you're entering this scene where something happened, instead of just,
No, go on.
Yeah, instead of trying to have these bullets or just deliver the message you have.
Well, Joe Rozada, thank you so much for coming on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, that's a wrap. All right. Congratulations, Joel, our newest talk alumni. We're going to bring Bobby here. Any advice to Bobby and Robert here before they go on?
Was that from me or from?
Yeah, no, you're the expert now.
I'm the expert
here. Yeah, we got Bobby and Robert.
Quite easy.
Quite easy. All right.
Yeah.
Hey, Joe.
Hey.
Good
All
deal.
right.
All right. Well, good. Well, we're going to escort Joel back to the green room where Lida is still hanging around, listening, drinking all this stuff up. This is wonderful. And same thing with Robert. And we will be with Robert in just a few minutes. Bobby, how are you, my friend?
Doing well, thank you. How are you doing?
Good. Good. You ready for this?
Oh yeah, man. Let's do
Now,
this.
you might be my first 5-timer. I've had a few 4-timers in the last, I've interviewed almost 300 people. I don't think I've had a 5-timer yet. So
Cool.
we're going to talk about that. I mean, I watched one of the 5 at length, and I think, what we might just do is just draw on your collected experience, almost like a total blitz round, in a sense, because I don't want to leave any of that on the off the table or on the table. I'm not sure which is which, but that's what we shall do. All right. Hey, everybody in Bobby's fan club, Bobby's tribe, you want to share the message. This guy's been on the TEDx stage 5 times, which is more than I have been, and more than most of us have been. So this is going to rock. And whether this is live or recorded, doesn't matter. You can still share and make this work. Now we've got to, let's see here. Looking over here. All right. It's Umar.
Right. Umar. Yeah.
Umar. Okay.
Yeah.
Bobby Umar is a 5-time TEDx speaker, an Inc. magazine top 100 leadership speaker, a social media influencer, and coach. He's spoken around the world on the power of connection as it relates to authentic networking, personal branding, and digital marketing and content. And then your website is, it's a LinkedIn. Do you have you have a website, correct? You have?
Yeah, it's rayallen.com.
Reallen.com. Okay, that's where I see that. All right, you have a speaker mastermind, reallen.com. That's what we're going to go with, just because everybody has a LinkedIn page. So I want to preference the website, reallen.com.
It's Ray Allen.
Rayallen.com.
Like the former basketball player, Ray Allen.
Say that again?
Like the former basketball player, Ray Allen.
Oh, okay. RAEALLAN.com. Okay,
Yep.
so I'm going to spell that out. Now, is Ray? So Ray is a leadership. So I'm completely ignorant. So I apologize for that. So you're affiliated with him, and then that's why.
No.
No.
I'm just using that to help you pronounce it. It's Ray Allen is basically the combination of Rayhan, my first name, and Allen, my former business partner.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
the
just trying.
It's all about speaking and training and leadership development around the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
And that's why I clear all this stuff up before we actually hit the podcast button.
Yeah.
Even though this is on Facebook Live right now.
Sure.
That's part of the beauty of Facebook Live. You get to see the way these interviews look when the interviewer guy is getting a clue.
Yeah, it's good. It's all good.
It is all good. All right. So let's do a quick little audio. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
We're about even, which is awesome. And we are live in 3, 2. We are live with Bobby Umar. Bobby, are you ready to talk?
Yeah, I'm ready to talk, ready to walk, ready to rock.
Bobby Umar is a 5-time TEDx speaker. He's an Inc. magazine top 100 leadership speaker, a social media influencer, and a coach. Bobby has spoken around the world on the power of connection as it relates to authentic networking, personal branding, and digital marketing and content. Bobby Umar, welcome to the talk.
Thank you very much. Delighted to be here.
So Bobby's talks, I could read them all out, but I think the one that I saw was the 5 C's of connection. And then there are 4 more in addition to that. In the one that I saw, you talked about how connection really needs to have 5 different principles. It needs to be deep. It needs to be authentic. It needs to be genuine, meaningful, and finally, life-changing. So we can start right there. Please, Bobby, just take us a little bit behind the talk.
Well, when I first was asked, that was my first TEDx talk, and they said, tell us, Bobby, what is your biggest idea of your life, and what are you all about? And so, knowing my personal brand and what I was all about, I had some ideas, but I had to kind of really figure it out what I want to talk about. But I realized that connection and the power of connection is something that I've been dealing with my whole life. It really came from the idea that my wife told me, which was, Bobby, how is it when you meet someone and then within 20 minutes, they tell you their whole life story and they share the most intimate details of their life. And it's crazy to talk about their finances, their sex lives, their mental breakdowns. Like, well, how do you do that? And I was like, you know what? I don't know. Let me figure this out. And so then I started thinking about, okay, what is it do I actually do that does this? And then I was inspired by a talk that I'd seen by Brené Brown on the power of vulnerability. And I was like, well, you know what? She has research that suggests the things that I'm doing is actually working. And so that's when I came to the idea, okay, here's what I do. It's really all about caring in a very genuine, authentic way. It's communicating in a very proactive and somewhat assertive way to, go to ask the really deep, dark questions. And then from that, create that powerful connection. And that's kind of how the whole talk came together. It was actually interesting because, I didn't even know what TEDx was at the time. And then I saw, wow, look at all these people, they're doing this thing. I should totally do this. This is so cool. And I was actually nervous. And, a funny story, I was backstage pacing back and forth because I was so nervous. And normally because I've been a professional speaker now for over a decade and a half. And so I'm pretty, confident.
Yeah, you're pacing around nervous, even though you've been doing this for 50 years.
And I rehearsed this, and I normally don't rehearse my speeches. Maybe once or twice it runs through my head. But I rehearsed this thing 30 times. And I was pacing back and forth. And then I saw this teddy bear. I was like, well, whose is that? And I said, can I grab it? And I grabbed it and I started hugging it back and forth because this made me feel better. And then when they announced my name, I took the teddy bear on stage. It wasn't planned. Everyone was like, is that planned? No, it wasn't planned. I took the teddy bear on stage, I hugged it, and I put it on the table, and then I began. And that was great.
All right. Now, there's so much there. I got to unpack it. So I think it really is about, Bobby, you're an unconscious competent in terms of connecting. And I know you are a master connector because you've been on that stage 5 times and you don't get to be on the stage very often or get on the stage at all unless you can connect in a major way. But this is powerful because you just automatically connected. Your wife can't figure it out. Other people can't figure out how you connect. You didn't even know how you connected. And it took Big Ted's superstar Brené Brown talking about vulnerability on the things that she talks about, and her work and her data, and you were able to have a framework based on some of her work to give language to what and become a conscious, competent connector. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think the best part was that her research validated what I had in my own mind from a qualitative and anecdotal perspective. I looked at all the connections I had my whole life, hundreds and hundreds of them, and what I was actually doing. And yes, I was actually willing to share vulnerability. I was creating a space for vulnerable sharing back and forth. And those were among the deepest, most powerful connections of my life. And so that validation was fantastic. And I even leveraged that in my talk.
Man, that's powerful, powerful stuff. So, so then there was the next talk, and then there was the next talk. And so how long ago was that first talk relative to the present day?
Yeah, so the first talk was, I even know the date, March 5th, 2011. And I know that because the day I knew I was going to do a TED Talk was the day I actually launched my social media strategy, which is essentially I started a newsletter, I started a Facebook page, I started a Twitter strategy, and everything kind of started from there because I knew that it would be a really good launching platform for my speaking business. And TEDx by its very nature is a fantastic branding tool as well to be associated with that brand, as well as to have the professional video that they created. So that's when it started. And then actually the first 4 of my TEDx talks all happened within a 2-year span. And then I took a long break. And then the last one happened actually just in March of this year. Yeah. Wow.
Well, that's an interesting timeline. I don't know, Talk Universe, if you caught this, but Bobby just launched his social media branding strategy right when he got accepted for his first talk. Did I hear that right, Bobby?
That's right.
So what could you say? Because I noticed this with so many people. I talk about it in the Get Accepted course. I know so many of us do speaker coaching and whatnot. I'm more focused on helping people get accepted. And there's a real, I think for so many of us, myself included, when we get accepted, the state of our brand is not necessarily stage ready. And when you got accepted that first time, you realized you needed to start a social plan, a content marketing plan, so that when you got on the stage for the first time, you would have a stage ready brand. I'd love to hear, how that strategy paid off for you, because it's the number one oversight that I hear with people. We think that those letters on the stage is going to, magically be a magic wand. It's a great thing, especially if we're ready for it, but it's not a magic wand. What are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, so the first thing I can tell you is that I specifically related the TED Talk to the brand that I was coming up with, which was the Power of Connection. I still use that today. About a few months earlier, I had started tweeting a little bit. So I just joined Twitter, like probably several months before, and I had started tweeting, and I'd say Power of Connection, rule number 1, and I started sharing a rule of connection. And eventually, I was planning to make that to be my book too, The Power of Connection. So I made sure that the first talk aligned with what my brand was going to be moving forward. I had to pick something that was definitely going to be part of me my whole life, that wasn't going to change, it was not going to really alter. And now what I've seen is Power of Connection has been this way pretty much my whole life. I've run events called Power of Connection. I have a Facebook page, Power of Connection group. Like, I have leveraged Power of Connection for almost everything that I do. And so that was a very, very important piece. And that also continued on when it came to my newsletter, which is called The Power of Connection, when it came to my Twitter strategy and my content, all aligned around Power of Connection. And so doing that, I think, was very strategic. And I knew that at the same time, I was trying to, at this point, kind of, I would say, struggling with my business. I was trying to really take it off to a higher level. And I knew that the TEDx talk would be a huge way to build upon as a platform, because then it became 1-time TEDx speaker, 2-time TEDx speaker, pretty soon 4-time TEDx speaker. And then I just kind of rode that one for a while to grow my brand and my business.
Well, Talk Universe, I hope you were listening up. And if you weren't, you want to hit the rewind button on your cassette player, your 8-track, or your record player, whatever you're using right now. You want to listen to that again, because that is if you, as you are getting accepted, if you can align your brand with who you really are and streamline it out like Bobby started doing, even if you don't really have that much of a personal brand, man, how powerful that will be for you. So my question for Bobby, again, 5-time TEDx speaker, you really, the foresight that you had to do that, not on talk number 4 or number 3, but talk number 1, right, and make it so much about who you are as a connector. How did you layer the second talk, the third talk? How did you go from there? Because it seems like you aligned it very, very well right from the outset. So what was your continuing strategy?
Yeah, that's a good question. And funny enough, I don't talk very much about the second and third TEDx talks, mostly because there's no video. And one of the things I learned that, the right TEDx event, if they don't do a good job, you can't get access to a video. So the video quality was poor. But I did align it with.
So can we pause on that? Was it a tech issue? Did they not follow the standards? Were they first time events and didn't know what they were doing?
Exactly. So one of the things to keep in mind is that when you do a TEDx talk, because I've also been asked to do other TEDx talks, which I've rejected for various reasons. If they don't have a strong social media presence, or they are new starting out, if they don't have the right video equipment set up, you need to be really hesitant about whether you want to accept that TEDx talk or not. So the second one, I remember it came 2 months before, and I accepted right away. I thought, hey, wow, 2 TEDx talks, that's great. But basically the issue was the lighting was poor quality on the stage, and therefore TED said you cannot have these videos. And on top of that, I wasn't even allowed to get access to the video. I was like, wow, I had no idea that they were so strict on that. And so you
didn't even get access to the footage.
No, and I didn't bring my own camera, and I thought, oh shoot, this sucks. Like, I was really disappointed about that.
That really sucks, because the average prep I've heard, and I don't know if this is absolutely true, but I think it is. The average person puts about 50 hours of effort into a well done talk.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not everybody does, not all of them are well done, but I mean, this is so important talk universe for you to hear, and this is the first time that I actually got into it with a guest who actually went through it. I'm really happy this wasn't your first experience. This was your second, third, and fourth, or
yeah, the second one was the
second
big
and
one.
third.
Really bad.
Wow.
Yeah. And
So,
you know, and I can tell you that too. Like, you know, people don't think about those things when they're trying to accept the TED because they want the first one. Now, if it's your first TEDx talk, totally fine. But you know, you want to get the video. That's a huge one. Even if they're poorly organized, as long as they have the video stuff in play, that's great. Because then you have a video say, "Hey, here's my first TEDx talk." Not having that was like a big pain. It's like, what, Bob? They're like, "Bobby, where's your talk? I can't share with you." Oh my god! And they're all upset.
Oh, and I mean, that's kind of a brand risk. I mean, we've got a number of branding experts on the broadcast today. That's a risk to your brand because it wasn't your fault. I mean, if that had been your first talk, oh my gosh, it's like, oh, Bobby, are you sure you know, you gave a good talk? Are you sure you're ready? It almost makes you look bad.
Yeah, but I would just, again, as a brand expert, I would spin it around into a story of vulnerability. What the story is, what's the lesson? No, that's what you would do, and that's what I would do too.
Yeah.
You know, and then when that happened, now you were asking the question earlier about how I related it to my other brands. Well, the second talk was all about the power of questions, and I talked about, you know, taking the power of connection and what kind of really bold questions can we ask of ourselves to change our relationships with each other and also how to change the world. So that's kind of what I did there. And the third TEDx talk was all about. Actually, it was about connection, local versus global, and how do we take our connections via local and then turn that into a global phenomenon or a movement. And so that's kind of, so they all related to those first three. And the fourth one was a bit of a shift because of the location and the theme. That was specifically for university and college students, and I basically told them, listen, as a leader, how do you fly and how do you make impact when you're actually young? So that was a different shift. And the fifth one goes back to power of connection. It was all about hugs. So there you go.
There we go, everybody. Now, hey, so a couple of backup plans. You do need to be selective. Just because you get accepted or get invited may not be something that you want to. It's like having a job opportunity or going to college. I mean, you get accepted at a certain college. You may not say yes to that opportunity, or you might. And you might rank them, and you might have a whole group instead of just one that you apply for. It's powerful stuff. Great. I appreciate, Bobby, you know, you sharing that, and that's really the first I think that we've been able to tread in that. You know, just as a backup, this is something maybe you started doing afterward, Bobby. I actually snuck this in a year ago when I gave my talk, but you know, you always kind of want to you didn't hear it here from me, but you want to have a backup bootleg video of your own from the gallery just to prove that you were there. So that's not a bad idea as well. Now we've been enjoying this talk with Bobby Umar, who is my first 5-time guest that I've been that I'm aware of, at least here on Be the Talk. His the one that we started with was called the 5 C's of Connection, and we're going to hear more from Bobby in just a moment in the Blitz Round. We're back with the Blitz Round with Bobby Umar. I'm about to ask Bobby a series of either-or questions related to his 5 TEDx talks. Bobby, are you ready?
Yeah, Ray, let's do this.
All right, let's do it. Were you invited to speak or did you apply?
I was invited to speak for the first 4, and then the 5th one I thought I would apply because it aligned with my brand.
Okay, how did it align with your brand? That's interesting.
Well, the theme was connection. So I was like, oh shoot, You know what? I have a couple of TEDx talk ideas in my back pocket. Let me apply, and then I got in right away.
Well, I mean, that's remarkable because you got invited for the first one, the second one, the third one, the fourth one, and then you decide to apply for the 5th one. That's you are a man of mystery.
Well, that's why there was a break. I mean, I went with the 4-time TEDx speaker and just kind of focused on my career, and I didn't think about TEDx talks anymore. But then that theme came down the pipeline. I was like, well, this is perfect. I should really apply, and so I did.
So you've been speaking publicly for 15 years and you have your normal style and preparation, Bobby. When it comes to a TEDx speak, is that different than how you normally prepare or not so much for you?
Completely different because, you know, they said, okay, give us the greatest talk of your life, keep it to under 18 minutes, have minimal slides, right? And talk a bit about your personal life. And I was like, wow, that's a lot. I mean, for me, normally a keynote would be, I'll have 50 to 100 slides. I'm a big PowerPoint guy for structure. I didn't like to have no slides or little slides. And for me, that's why I was so terrified. I was so scared, like so nervous because it was outside my comfort zone. And also, a shorter talk. So completely different preparation. You really have to practice the stories and make sure you get each word, perfectly the way you want it to be. And so that's something that I think is way harder. And what's funny, it's shorter talk, but more prep. So typically for me, now that I've been speaking for so long, I can probably prepare a talk anywhere between 5 to 10 hours. But for a TEDx talk like that, we're talking, for me, you mentioned 50. For me as a professional speaker, 20, 30 hours goes into my TEDx talk prep.
Yeah, and you, Chris Anderson, the head of TED, he calls this presentation literacy in his book. And this, it's a short form, idea centric talk as opposed to a keynote or, something else where we're kind of the hero is the speaker. So this is a different type of talk. The more you do this different type of talk, the more efficient you get in your own little meta process that you use. So my next question for Bobby, do you prefer to be an opener? Do you prefer to be a closer or in between?
That's a good question. Well, again, one of the things that I say, often when I train people on my TEDx talk trainings is, when you look at a TEDx talk, are you one of the superstars, or are you among superstars and they're way better than you, or are you the one superstar and everyone else is, where are you at? And you got to do a really honest assessment of that. So the thing is, if you're so in one of the talks, I was definitely one of I'm going to call it the superstar of the group. The rest of them, they're all kind of local people or they're academics. And so for that, I prefer to close, right? Because then what I'll often do is I'll take even a minute to summarize what we've learned the entire day, and I do a good job of that. But generally speaking, I will say this: I don't want to go first, I don't want to go last, but I definitely like to go early, because one of the things I learned on my first TEDx talk is I was one of the last to go, and I'm so nervous. Let's get this over with. So now I'm like, now I want to get it. I want to get it done. I want to get it done so I can have fun networking, talk to the people. Otherwise, I'm in the back room just practicing, rehearsing, and not talking to anybody. So for me, I prefer early in the day, enough to know the staging, the lighting is good, and the videos are going well. But I prefer it be in the first half of the day.
From one closer to another, congratulations, and that's not an easy thing to do. So any advice for the closers out there?
Well, I think
in addition to what you said, the summary piece is great, but what else would you say?
Well, I think that a closer has to have a really compelling story that really aligns with the theme of the conference, and that's a really good way to set it up. And that's one thing. The second thing is find a way to end with some inspiration. What's the inspiration and the takeaway that we're all going to get up there? You want them to move. You want them to act on what you say, as opposed to, that's a good idea. Okay, very nice. No, you want them to really I'm ready today, day one, to move forward and act. And for me, as a closer, that's something I make sure is key. And the last thing I'll say is a really good close is something you should memorize. So your final 30 seconds or whatever it might be, get the wording exactly right, write it all down, memorize that so that it's like, boom, that's what you really, really want.
Well, we've been enjoying this talk with Bobby Umar. His talk is one of the 5, is called The 5 C's of Connection. You can check out really as many of his, we'll get all 5 of them there on the show notes page. And you can also connect with Bobby at rayallen.com. And I'm going to spell that for you, RAEALLAN.com, RAEALLAN.com. He's got a speaker course right in there. You want to learn from great people that have been to the stage like Bobby. And we're going to be right back with Bobby for the final 10-second word of advice in just a moment. And we're back with the final word of advice from Bobby Umar. What is it?
I think the biggest word of advice I can give you is that you need to spend time, energy, resources, and some money to invest in your personal brand, to understand your values, your skills, your interests, your traits, your everything. Because if you work on your brand and you understand what it is, you will have, number one, more alignment, which leads to fulfillment. you'll have more focus, which leads to a strong purpose. And number 3, you'll have more impact, which ultimately is your legacy. If you want to fight for your life and have the life that is worth talking about in stories and having a legacy, invest the time in your personal brand.
Bobby Umar, thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
My pleasure.
All right. It's a wrap.
Awesome. Good job.
We went a little longer with Bobby because he had, I think, a little bit more than the average to share there. So I mean, I think we got our money's worth out of Bobby today. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Robert, how are you, sir?
Outstanding. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good. Got some great guests today. So congratulate. Thank you so much for being so patient. Bobby, you are our newest Talk alumni of the show. So any advice to Robert as we're setting up?
Yeah, you got to keep up with this guy. He's fast. He's high energy. So you got to keep up with him. Okay.
Yeah. You look like you were well matched.
Yeah.
well put, Robert. Oh my gosh. Well, this is great. So Robert, Mr. Cover Letter Bot.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, Bobby. Thank you so much, my friend. Escorting Bobby back to the green room. Oh, what a great story we have here. Oh, my word. Okay, so I see here in the bio 50 words didn't fit. So I don't have anything, and we're running up against our little timeline deadline, which I want to respect for everybody's benefit, especially yours. What's a real brief bio, couple things I can say for you, Robert?
Yeah, so I had a career in nonprofit and politics, sort of a technologist and strategist. And more recently have pivoted more towards the tech industry. Currently the chief operating officer of a fitness company. That's about it.
Chief technology officer of a fitness company.
COO, chief operating officer.
Oh, you did say operating. Okay, yes. So I was second guess. I actually wrote that down. And then I looked at it and I'm like, no, this guy's a CTO. And then no,
there's a lot of technology in COOs. So
yeah, obviously.
How we get our jobs done.
Obviously. So no, I'm at the point with enough of these interviews back to back that I'm starting to go a little psycho and second guessing or triple guessing myself. We're going to jump right back into it. And for Robert's fan club, you want to wiggle your finger and help him share this message because as any chief operating officer knows, Facebook is throttling us back by the day, and videos are no longer as special as they used to be. Therefore, we're counting on you to share Robert's message, which is a tremendous message because you might not be able to get a good job without Robert's message. So powerful, powerful stuff based on everything that Robert talked about in his talk, which is just great. So, all right. So I will improvise out a bio verbally based on that, which I've actually gotten a little bit better. I've got a LinkedIn website. Do you have something more directed to you than that, or will the website, the LinkedIn work?
LinkedIn is great.
LinkedIn is great. Okay, we're going to do LinkedIn then. All right, awesome. All right. Okay, and it is Coombs. Am I saying that correctly? Robert Coombs. Coombs. Robert Coombs.
Coombs is fine. Yep.
Okay, I'm saying it both ways. Robert Coombs. Okay.
Yep.
Same way that you say my senator's name here in Delaware. So
that's right.
Works out. All right. Well, we're pretty much ready to rock. We're going to do a quick little 5 count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
We're ready to rock in 3, 2. We are live with Robert Coombs. Robert, are you ready to talk?
Absolutely. Lead the way.
Robert Coombs is a career strategist. He is a nonprofit expert, a political expert. I'm going to start that again. Robert Coombs has a career spanning the nonprofit, political, and strategy industries. He is currently the COO of a fitness company. Robert Coombs, welcome to the talk.
Thanks so much for having me.
Your talk is called Is a Robot Standing Between You and Your Next Job? And I love this talk because basically you created a bot while you were in a transition period that we all go through. And this bot applied you to like 1,500 jobs, or at least a cover letter, using keywords, and none of it worked out at all. Because you basically, as you said, it's not what you know, it's who you know. So please take us behind the talk.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, the talk really is the story behind what was a spectacular failure. I think that's one of the things that's a little counterintuitive. Everyone hears that I built a bot that applies to jobs. And in fact, it applied to thousands of jobs. And they think, okay, so this guy must have been getting job offers left and right. And the punchline of the story is, no, I actually didn't. And, maybe that's because I wasn't the perfect fit for some of those jobs. But the reality was actually something more serious and something that I thought was really interesting. And that is that when we apply online, when we submit those applications, so many of them are really going into digital dustbins. They're being sent into applicant tracking systems, which are just huge databases. And we're being pitted against hundreds, if not thousands, of other people that are competing for just a handful of positions. And so that's really where the story led me. It started out as a creative project, and it wound up being sort of investigative internet prank.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's almost like, hey, what shall we name this ship? Internet best, and there are all kinds of ways that the internet works that kind of brings ire and wrath upon itself. I think the latest thing that was, I think, a statue that I saw in Savannah, Georgia, that someone had mutilated by putting googly eyes on, and I think that's the latest thing going around. But anyhow, I mean, what I love about this is, I mean, the statistical probability of getting a job is basically zero. And you prove that. You basically unveiled, the emperor has no clothes, the whole way that we've been all thinking that we need to go about doing a rite of passage every, multiple times a decade for many people is completely wrong. And I love how you just unveiled kind of the Wizard of Oz behind that machine and showed us all that it's not working. And then I also love that once you showed that, it opened the dialogue for all kinds of opportunities for you to dialogue and talk and connect with great industries and build a future for yourself. So what's your take on that whole piece? I mean, you really kind of expose something that isn't working and it's supposed to work, and it probably needs to be reformed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that one of the things that's interesting as people either see the talk, or this actually started out as an article in Fast Company, the response that I get is pretty consistent. And that is, people are saying, this is shocking, but not surprising. And it's something that a lot of us have been suspicious of for a long time. I mean, the number of times that you apply to a job, if you're lucky, you get an instantaneous response saying, thank you for applying to this job. And then months go by with total silence and no human interaction. On the other hand, most of the people that we talk to who are successful, if you ask them how they got their job, did they apply on LinkedIn? Did they submit their resume through the website? What did they do? The overwhelming majority of them say, no, I didn't do any of that stuff. I just networked. I knew someone, they knew me, and the rest is sort of history. And so the thing that I was really trying to set out here was an opportunity to just be honest about how that system works. I think that it is such a critical system. Right now, we just heard news that there are actually more job openings than there are people unemployed right now. But it's not always going to be the case. And that job market sometimes can be really, really difficult, especially if you're in a position like I was, where I was transitioning from leadership positions in nonprofits into where I really want to be, which is in the tech industry. And so if you're making a pivot like that, the deck is stacked against you. And you can't just rely on this system that people tell us works, but in reality is not set up for the individual job seeker. It's set up for the corporation that's seeking to hire lots and lots of candidates.
Robert, thank you so much, because I completely overlooked that glaring, obvious irony that we are right now at a historic, multi-generational low unemployment time. And so, I mean, actually, this may not have applied to when the article came out and when you actually did this. So how far back was that? And am I kind of putting things together that don't necessarily go?
No. They totally do go together. I mean, the unemployment rate wasn't nearly as low, when I did this as it is now. At the same time, I think that we know that that's something that goes in cycles. And we know that even when national trends are pointed in a positive direction, there are still certain populations that have a much harder time than others. And again, folks like me who are deciding that they want to do something different in their career. And so it doesn't matter that there's lots and lots of jobs out there. It means that you actually have to work harder to get that, because you have to demonstrate that you're competitive with other people who have exactly the pedigree that companies might be looking for.
Sure. So, I mean, let's talk practical steps, because this is, be the talk universe. We're always, transitioning. There are always listeners that are looking at other options and whatnot. So, here's what doesn't work based on your work is inventing and programming a brilliant bot that can create and literally write your own cover letter and resume for you, and sending that out and thinking that that's going to get the job done. What does work, other than putting a Fast Company blog that goes completely viral for all the right reasons? If we don't write the viral blog or do something that remarkable, what is the best way to go about it?
Well, so not everyone has the resources to do what I did and then tell their story in a national publication and then get a chance for a TEDx talk. But everybody does have the opportunity to do the things that led up to that for me, which is to take stock of their skills, to try and be the very best that they can in their area, and then to share that success, share those skills in as many different venues as you can. The reality is, whereas applying online really doesn't work in any sort of statistical fashion, there are a lot of small companies who do look at every single resume, and certainly when I was hiring, I looked at every resume that I could. But the reality is, when you're looking at larger companies, that's just not the way that it happens. But those companies love a good story. They love someone who's generous with their time, who can come in and solve problems. And so that's really the key to this, is figure out what you're great at, figure out how you tell that story, and then talk to people in the companies that you want to be at and demonstrate the value that you can bring.
It's so interesting, because what you're basically saying, Robert, is that situational awareness and emotional intelligence, outranks the tech and the savvy and the programming and all of that. We're seeing this trumping of the technology with just old fashioned sensibility. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, the type of candidate that companies are looking for is different in different types of jobs. One thing that I'll say is, especially if you're looking for a leadership role, being able to demonstrate that you think differently, that when you encounter a problem, you don't just say like, okay, so I've hit a full stop. You think about how you can go over, around, under, through. Honestly, that's how the sort of bot came to be. But the reality is, that's just kind of the way that I think. And it's the thing that sort of led to a number of opportunities where people recognize, we don't need the same old style of thinking. That's what got us here. We're trying to get to a different place. So we need someone who's going to come in with a creative perspective and sort of take risks, but take smart ones.
Well, we've been enjoying this interview with Robert Coombs. His talk is called "Is a Robot Standing Between You and Your Next Job?" And I believe the Fast Company article that he wrote was titled similarly to that. We've been enjoying this, and we're going to enjoy even more information, helpful information from Robert, as we continue in just a moment with the Blitz Round. And we're back with the Blitz Round with Robert Coombs. I'm going to ask Robert a series of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of his recent talk. Robert, are you ready?
Ready to go.
First question, were you invited to speak or did you apply?
I was invited. I got a note from one of the organizers of TEDx Bratislava, way off in the distance.
And where is that?
Bratislava, it's in Slovakia. It was a
yeah.
spectacular conference organized at the Slovak National Theater. Really beautiful opera hall with 1,000 people. So I thought, how could I say no to this?
Nice. Well, tax deductible mini vacation, perhaps, or I'm not a tax expert, but
they took care of everything. I really had, I didn't have to worry about anything.
Well, it's good to write viral blog posts based on brilliant ideas that you had, for sure. So how did you prepare, Robert? Are you a memorizer, an improviser, or a blender?
This really required me to step outside of my comfort zone. I like to be sort of dynamic when I speak. I like to work with the audience, get feedback, and sort of move accordingly. But I couldn't do that for this. They asked me to hit the 16-minute mark. They asked me to hit it on the dot. And so that required working on a script, making sure that it was tight, making sure that I was as good as possible. And honestly, memorizing a script is terrifying to me. But they did a really great job in working alongside me, making sure that the slides were going to be timed perfectly. And I almost hit my 16-minute mark. I came in at 15 minutes and 44 seconds.
On the dot.
Real close.
I've never heard of on the dot. I mean, I feel like pulling our other guests in here, which I won't do, but on the dot. Usually shorter is better because everyone goes a little over or a lot over. And so I've never heard of on the dot before.
Well, listen, they did such an incredible job of organizing it. Everything was so tight. The agenda was packed, and I just wanted to be respectful of all of the work that they had put in by doing my best to hit my marks.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, what a testimony to the caliber of not just what they're attempting to do, but what they're able to do year in, year out. I'm sure. So, Robert, what's the tip, tool, or technique that helps you prepare? This is a little unusual, but I mean, in general, or for this, what's a tip, tool, or technique?
Well, I'll tell you something that I did that's a little bit different. And this is sort of, me coming up with my own life hacks. I actually, because I had to have a script and because I needed to hit that mark, I actually wrote it all out. And then I used my iPhone to read it back to me. So you know how you can make Siri read text to you? I had Siri read it back to me. So now I had written it out, I had read it, I'm seeing it visually, and now I'm hearing it. And so getting that full sort of immersion into the talk helped me to figure out exactly what the timing was, exactly what things that I wanted to enunciate and put a finer point on. And I think that's really what allowed me to memorize it in a way that generally I just don't do.
Well, Talk Universe, we've been enjoying this excellent blitz round with Robert Coombs. And if you want to find out more about him, you can go to our website, bethetalk.com. In the show notes page, we will have a link to his talk, Is a Robot Standing Between You and Your Next Job? And we will also have a link to Robert's LinkedIn page right there for you. And in just a moment, we're going to be right back with Robert Coombs for the final word of advice for Talk Universe. And it is time to come back for the final word of advice for Talk Universe from Robert Coombs. What is it?
So the best advice that I can give to folks giving TEDx talks is to just enjoy your co-speakers, share the joy of that experience. Everyone's having a really great time, and really be present for that and be grateful. This is an opportunity to share, in my case, share my story with 1,000 people who couldn't be happier to hear all of the different stories that were being told that day.
Awesome. Well, Robert Coombs, thank you so much for coming on the talk today, sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thanks for having me.
All right. That was almost 15 minutes on the dot. So
all right, we hit our
excellent,
mark.
Excellent. Yeah, we're doing pretty good. We're bringing back Joel and Bobby because they're still around. Hey, everybody, welcome back.
Awesome. Welcome.
Yeah. So we're almost right at the end of the hard stop. I know some of you may have hard stops, but wanted to bring you back since you were still hanging out. Any final words? Because we're still broadcasting here to Facebook Live. So, what thoughts? What did we learn from each other? Let's start with you, Bobby.
Well, I think the big thing that comes to my mind is that everyone here has different expertise in different areas that they excel in. And there's people out there listening to this, whether they're on Facebook Live or elsewhere, and they just don't follow up and reach out and ask for help. We're available, we're accessible. I have 500,000 followers and on social media, and you would think that I'm inundated with emails and requests. I'm not. Not that I want thousands of them, but I'm not. And so if you actually take the effort to reach out, ask for help, build a relationship, you'll have people like myself and the other people on the panel that are going to be willing to help you. So just go for it. Ask for help.
Awesome. Hey, Joel, Robert, any comments? I know we're kind of right on the minute. So any comments from you guys?
I think that's a really great point. And not only thinking about when you can ask for help, but also thinking about when you can offer help. If you see people who could use your skill set or the kinds of things, the tools that you bring to the table, making sure that you step up and offer that, because as you know, it's hard to ask for help. And so put yourself in their shoes. It's incredibly generous when people offer it.
Awesome. Joel, any thoughts from you before we go? I think you might be muted. Your face is moving, but we don't hear you. All right.
Yeah, that's true. It was actually muted. So I really like your comment, Robert, that you should really try to like the moment and try to see the moment and try to be happy in giving a speech and that.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you for all of you for coming on the talk today. I'm going to let you go because we're just
thank you.
Over. And thanks all you guys watching Talk to Universe. Don't forget to help spread the message. Wiggle your finger over the share button. Take care, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.